Hello everyone and welcome back to day 13 of our F125 Hotlap and Setup series. Yesterday we returned here in the Ardennes, the longest track on the Formula 1 calendar. We're back of course for the Belgian Grand Prix. If you missed out on the video that went live yesterday from Silverstone, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out, because today we're at another kind of high-speed, high-risk, high-reward circuit. And Belgium, as it has been in the last couple of games, you are clinging onto the car for dear life through so many of the corners here, because you want to run pretty much as little downforce as you can get away with. Of course, if you're new to this series though, and you don't know what this is about, we go through, I explain to you guys kind of where your braking markers should be, what you want to be looking for around each of the circuits inside F125. I then also provide you with a race setup designed for doing races in the game. And then last but not least, I'll show you a hot lap I've done with the setup as well. Of course, if these are helping you out, please do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed. At the time of recording, we are incredibly close to 12,000 subscribers here on the channel. This might also be the last video I ever do in this room, which is honestly quite a scary feeling, because across all of my channels, I've probably done about 3,000 videos here, well, not even including shorts and things like that. So that suddenly made me kind of really start thinking a whole lot more. As always though, timestamps will be linked down in the description below as well, if these help you out. But obviously if you just want to head to the setup or the hot lap or anything like that. But without further ado then, let's head first of all into our track guide. We're making our way then up through the bus stop chicane, getting ready to kickstart a lap then here from Spa-Francorchamps. Of course, open up the DRS out of the final corner, and you're going to be up in about 7th gear by the time you get towards turn 1. You want to get the car over to the left-hand side of the circuit. And around here, the first braking board, one of the easiest of the lap. The 100-meter board, that's what you're aiming for. Try and make sure that you slow the car down in a perfectly straight line. Make sure you just cycle it down. Be careful a little bit of rear locking, but also that you don't snag the front wheels, because La Source is a really, really important corner, especially the traction on the exit there. Get the car as close to the wall on the inside as you can, and then try and straighten up nice and early. Short shift up through third gear. Try to avoid leaning on that outside curb too much, and then we make our way down the hill, and it opens up to probably the most famous corner in all of Formula 1. Up in 7th gear, by the time you get down in towards the bottom of the hill, it is completely flat out. It is easy flat inside these games. Hug the curbs through the entry and the exit. Make sure you get the car nice and straight over the top of the hill there, and then up into 8th gear before you open up the DRS, as we still are climbing up the Kemmel straight there. Take the line of least resistance, but arc slowly back over to the left-hand side of the circuit. This is one of the highest speed sections of the lap, and then as we prepare ourselves for the next braking zone, after the 100-meter board, you want to brake about 80 meters out, I find, at the top of the hill, from 8th gear all the way down in towards 5th. For the first part of the corner. Try to get the inside wheel attacked over the curbing ever so slightly. Bring it down to 4 through the second part. Again, try to get the inside wheel over the curb. Don't allow the car to drift wide. Hug the left-hand side of the circuit, because then this final part should also be near enough flat out, as long as you short shift up to 5th gear on the exit. Of course, Spa are massively updated inside F124. This curb now is lethal, so if you're going to use it, make sure that you don't kind of go all the way onto it. What you want is the tyre on the curb, but not the bottom of the car. Otherwise, if you get out to about here, you can feel the car lift up, and you just lose a little bit of speed as you make your way down the hill. So I would aim to only ever get about this much of the car. You can see a small kind of ridge on the curbing as well, obviously where it slopes off the other side towards the gravel trap. So yeah, this is about exactly where you want to get the car there. Otherwise you'll potentially spin or just cost yourself speed as we make our way down the hill in towards Malmedy. 6th gear on the exit, braking pretty much at the start of the curb. You want to bring the car slowly and tidily in. I like to use 3rd gear normally. I did have to go down to 2nd on our hot lap. Allow the car to run a little bit wide through the midpoint of the corner, but get it tucked back in for the apex and get on that throttle as early as you can. Bring the car back over to the right-hand side. Turn in just after you go past the AWS sign. But again, I avoid this inside curbing at all costs. That slightly extended red part of the curb, that's the only bit that's raised. So that's the bit that will always upset the car. So if you can get it fully wedged over, it might not be the end of the world, but I would just avoid it completely, to be honest. That's what I tend to do inside F125. Allow the car to run nicely up towards the gravel on the exit as we make our way down in towards Puon. Now, with this setup, you are going to have to be lifting out of the corner ever so slightly. 7th gear on the way in, turn in nice and late. Again, avoid the inside curb. Just a blend of throttle in race trim. It is fully flat in qualifying if you get it absolutely hooked up and allow the car just to carry the speed off the exit of the corner. Back up into 8th gear as you make your way down the hill, but try and bring the car back over to the left-hand side once again then. And now you've got a pretty nice marker down here, just after the gantry, right at the start of that curve yet again. Bring the car in all the way down to 4th gear, but try not to downshift to 4th until you get right towards the apex. Bring the car through nice and tidy, again, avoiding the inside curb through the first part. Rotate the car round to the left-hand side for the second, still leaving it in 4th, and then try to use some curb on the exit, but be very, very careful of the gravel on the outside. Up into 5th gear, again you're going to be braking just as you go down the curb. Only a slight blip of the brake though. Down into 4th once more. Again, avoid that inside curbing and then really try to maximise the track width on the exit there. Get the wheel right up to that AstroTurf on the outside, and then you're going to be fully flat as you make your way through the exit of Stavelot. That corner as well, really, really important because you will carry speed all the way up through Blanchemont and in towards the bus stop chicane. Try to take the shortest run as best as you can. Bring the car from the right to the left and then back over to the right-hand side. Don't go over the white line. It's very bumpy there. Completely flat through Blanchemont. It's not even a corner in a Formula 1 car. And now you're preparing yourself for the straight line braking in towards the final corner. I like to still aim the car slightly out towards this final turn, just to allow yourself a little bit later on the brakes. Just at the 100-meter board, though, bring the car from 8th gear all the way down to 2nd. This bus stop chicane, you can get away with a lot of curb through the first part there, so really try to attack the car nice and tidy. Quick blip of throttle before you rotate the car through. Avoid the second curb as best as you can. Short shift up to 3rd on the exit. Avoid the exit curb as well. Open up the DRS, and that is going to be a lap then here of the Belgian Grand Prix circuit. Like I said, there's a lot to take in here where the lap is so long, but if you can get into a smooth motion here, it is really, really going to be beneficial. This circuit in the F1 games really does kind of encourage smooth steering. You know, you don't want to be going for too much flick steering or anything like that through the car. You just want to keep it planted, keep it steady, and there are so many places now where you can make mistakes. A lot of people hate the new version of Spa in the F1 games. I love it. I think it's brilliant. Then again, I like the old version as well. But yeah, let's head back to the garage and I'll talk you guys through the setup. Well, here we are then back in pit lane. As you can see, just under 2 seconds away from your top time in the world there. But again, these guys are running like 0 wing around this circuit, which I personally found doesn't really work very well in a race strategy. A 143.1 I was fairly happy with. And if we have a look then, taking a look at the setup, 5.2 for the front and rear wing. It is ridiculously low. You want that speed down the back straight. If you're struggling with the car through the middle sector, I would up this to the absolute maximum of running 10.7, but I would try and run it as low as you possibly can. You might even want to run 4.1 here if you're not struggling too much through that middle sector. But again, be careful. Puon can be very unforgiving and obviously is barely flat out with this wing configuration. 90-45 for the diff. Pretty standard on throttle. Slightly higher off throttle around this circuit today. Again, where there's not that many kind of difficult traction zones here, you can get away with it a little bit more. It just allows kind of the rear wheels to stay together through like Le Com at the top of the hill and things like that. And obviously La Source as well at turn 1. So 90-45 is just what worked for me. If you're struggling with traction, maybe bring the off-throttle diff down to 40 and the on-throttle diff down to like 80, but I wouldn't run much lower than that. Otherwise, you're just going to be costing yourself time. Again, pretty much my standard front and rear camber and toe as well. Pretty normal stuff. Again, it just helps look after the tyres. The one stop is the way to go around Belgium. 10 laps on the mediums, 12 laps on the hards if you're doing a 50% league race. It's not the worst track in the world for tyre wear, but you have just got to be a little bit careful, especially as you get towards the end of a stint. The tyres can just get a little bit slippery, and especially if you get gravel on them, you are going to be in a world of hurt. 38.3 for the front and rear suspension, but 13.15 on the anti-roll bars. I just found a firmer suspension setup works here. Again, going up through Eau Rouge and Rally on kind of all the bumps there and everything else. 22.50 on the ride height. Again, this circuit has been smoothed out quite a lot inside the F1 game, but you still want that ride height quite low, so that you've obviously got a little bit more straight line speed, but not too low, that you kind of find in the car is bouncing around a little bit over the curbs, especially if you do accidentally hit one of those curbs, like the exit of Le Com up at the top of the circuit. You want to make sure that you've got a little bit of forgivingness in the car as well, so you're not instantly heading into a barrier. 98 on the brake pressure as always, 55 front brake bias. Again now, I seem to float between 54 and 55 inside this game. It does seem to be kind of a per track basis. I would probably still run 54 in a race, but of course, luckily, brake bias is one of the only things you can change during a Grand Prix, so kind of tweak and configure it as you normally would. Last but not least, absolutely maximum front pressures as always, 23.8 rear pressures. Again, this circuit isn't too bad for tyre wear. There aren't too many big traction zones, so you want those slightly higher pressures just to obviously look after them as you go through a race stint. Like I said, it's a one-stop here. The pit lane isn't the most costly in the world. You're likely going to see safety cars as well in a league race. The real danger corners, bizarrely, is Eau Rouge. I always just find I accidentally cut it a couple of times, just as you try and get the straightest line you can off of the corner. Also, the exit of Puon as well. You can just run a little bit wide, especially with how low the wing angles are inside this game. But apart from that, there aren't too many really dangerous ones. Like I said, apart from those curbs and a few of the gravel traps as well that you've always got to be careful of. But hopefully this setup helps you out. If it does, please do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed. I'm going to leave you guys with a hot lap, and we will hopefully be back tomorrow ready at the Hungaroring in a completely different room. That is scary.